Hey there, hi there, hello there, Nick here. Come along with us as Audrey and I attempt to drive all the way around Mount Rainier. It was a Friday, and warm, but not overbearingly hot, getting up to a high of 79 degrees Fahrenheit or 26 Celsius for the day. This seemed like the perfect weather to explore in. We started in Enumclaw, but Buckley, Washington is where we turned on the camera. Following a similar path that we did on our trip to Mineral, only with no need for Bonnie Lake, we cut out to South Prairie. Passing through Electron, which got its name from the Electron power plant on the Puyallup River, built in 1904, it seems they then proceeded to name everything else in the area after it. Lake Kapowsin, for instance, was created by the electron mud flow that happened in the 16th century, or roughly 500 years ago. The Lahar, or mud flow, started on Mount Rainier about 23 miles away and was said to be 26 feet thick as it thrashed its way through the Puyallup Valley. It is hard to imagine such a ferocious amount of death coming down from the mountain, but this is merely one of 60 such events that Rainier has unleashed into this area. The Osceola mudflow being the largest at a full cubic mile in volume. It traveled 65 miles and covered more than 210 square miles of land. The town of Enumclaw would be but a memory if such an event happened today, as this flow made its way almost to Kent, covering many communities in this area. Last count, more than 150,000 people now live on top of these old flows today. Ording, Washington is the most threatened, as both the Carbon River and Puyallup River will deliver the Lahar directly to them. The USGS and Pierce County Department of Energy Management have an alert system on both of these rivers, as they are the most likely to have the next Lahar happen down them. If such an event did happen, the town has 40 minutes to get out of the way before it is smashed to bits. Per the emergency preparedness website of Ording, keep moving. Whether walking or driving, don't stop. Keep moving. People behind you need to get up the hill too. I pray I never need to heed this advice. I often think about this, how everything seems so stable, but this whole area could change in the blink of an eye. After passing through Kapowsin, we take Orville Road East, which I don't know why they call it that, because at this point the road is pretty much north and south. This allowed us to drive along Lake Kapowsin and through Clay City, which was brought into existence after John E. Back let his glue bubble over in his pot in 1889, catching it on fire and burning 120 acres of downtown Seattle. Due to how many trees we have in the Pacific Northwest, everything in Seattle had been made from wood. The sidewalks, the sewers, buildings, and roads. If it could be made with wood, then wood it should be. $20 million in 1889 money destroyed by the time it was put out. With only brick buildings still standing, a new ordinance was issued soon after that all future buildings and sidewalks had to be made with fireproof materials. Where there is a demand, a supply shall be made. And the Far West Timber Company, which was cutting a path for a rail line between Tacoma headed out to Ashford in 1902, found a huge clay deposit as they were cutting and pulling the trees out. Far West Timber negotiated with the Tacoma Eastern Rail Company to buy 320 acres of this area so they could create bricks to feed the need of Seattle via a new company, the Far West Clay Company. Ohop Lake soon came into view before we got onto 161 headed towards Eatonville. Our favorite bathroom spot was again the perfect stop-off point. Sadly, no magical live music this time. Heading out of town on the Alder Cutoff Road, it was shocking how fast this trip felt compared to our trip to Mineral when we had Alder Lake show up right in front of us. Down along Mountain East Highway to Elby we went, heading straight to Highway 706 towards Ashford. This time there wasn't any event on, and the town was extremely peaceful. While there was a bunch of people clearly headed to Rainier National Park, everyone adopts a different timing out here. Strangely similar to Peninsula time, everything feels slower out here. Do I call this mountain time? Rainier time? Normal, ordinary things seem to be more magical, like breathing. The air up here is sweeter and soft. The trees seem more green, almost edging on neon with how vivid they look. A calm seemed to resonate over the whole area. As we continued up 706, passing Copper Creek Inn, we stumbled across Wildberries, the place we had wanted to stop at and had mistaken for Blackberry Bunghouse last time. We thought about stopping, but continued on as we knew we only had so much sunlight in the day. Passing a car accident, reminding us to drive safely, we quickly came to Nisqually entrance to the Rainier National Park. The wooden sign, seemingly a portal to the magic beyond. $30 entrance fee for a 1 to 7 day usage pass. The park ranger was extremely funny, and the exchange seemed to set the tone for how wonderful the park would be. Sadly, I didn't catch the audio here. Props to her for being amazing though. We entered the park around 2:30, and she let us know that the visitor center was only going to be open until 5 p.m. and handed us a map. The change from driving on Highway 706 to Paradise Road East is unimaginable. Its peaceful pace, more calm than previous mountain time outside the park, almost like the mountain itself is a time-warping force, and the closer you get to it, the more it can leverage its force at slowing the pace of time. You are in a tunnel of trees with huge evergreens butting up right next to the road. The twisty, turny little road not giving much view of Rainier until you start to climb up the mountain. From here, Rainier played peekaboo with us as we drove to our first stopping point, Rick Seeker Point, named in honor of Eugene Rick Seeker from the Army Corps of Engineers who designed Longmire Paradise Road. The mountain couldn't play coy here and dominates your field of view, finally letting you know just how high up you have actually climbed. From here, we headed to Narada Falls. Narada Muni was a sage from Hindu traditions and was known as a traveling musician and storyteller that carries news and enlightening wisdom. It's a fitting name for this falls. The sound of the water fills the area like a musician as it travels down the mountain. The pool that sits at the top of these falls looks so inviting if you don't think about the huge drop just next to it. The little bridge over Paradise River giving a wonderful perspective of just how clear the water in it is. There was a trail here that I would like to walk down next time and get better footage of these falls. Knowing we were pressed for time if we wanted to see the visitor center, we headed on to the center from here. Since it was such a beautiful day, everyone and their moms, cousins, uncles, sisters, friends was here. When the center came to view, it was so overwhelmed by people that it didn't feel worth it to stop. As you pass by the visitor center, you get to go onto a one-way road. It's a wonderland ride that takes you back down the mountain. This was my favorite part of the park, as it felt almost like you were on a roller coaster heading down. Gone were my worries of having to watch for oncoming traffic, and I got to really settle into everything around me. Setting the Impreza into cruise control at 30 miles per hour, we gracefully engine braked most of our way down the mountain path, allowing me to really be able to focus on all that was around me. The extreme high meadows grass so green. We tried out that new camera we got in our trip to Mineral. We missed the setting for image stabilization, so it's pretty shaky. You get many pretty views of Rainier as you go down. Finally, we got to the end of this one-way road and headed to Reflection Lake. It's hard to look around at this lake and think, this is man-made, but it is. In the late 1800s, this lake was actually more or less a little pond called Mud Lake. However, due to how unattractive it was, a channel was dug from the nearby Manzanita Creek, the influx of fresh water clearing up the water, and then they stocked the lake with trout. For a while, you could pay to fish this lake back in the 1920s when it was private property. The lake was given to the park in 1929. Today, the lake is home to a healthy population of native tui chubfish. They stopped stocking this lake and all the lakes in the area in 1990 to help preserve the native populations. The wind on my day here made it hard for there to be a clear reflection of Rainier. There is a loop that goes around this lake. You can also get reflections in the lake of Chaos Crags and Lassen Peak from the western shores. Many areas around this lake had brown revegetation signs letting you know where you should and shouldn't walk. Sadly, people were just stepping over these like they didn't exist. The steps down to the loop path are just a random set of stones. I almost fell getting down here. If the trail has a more accessible point, I did not find it. Our planned course had us going down Stevens Canyon Road and meeting up with Highway 123. However, this road is closed. One of the bridges is bad, as well as damage to the roads. There are signs saying that the closure is only Monday through Friday. Looking into it now, they are doing a rehabilitation to the road that's expected to go until the end of summer 2024. The road is open on weekends from Friday at 8:30 p.m. to Monday at 6 a.m. and holidays. Had we known that we only had to wait in the park for a little bit before the road would have opened, we might have stayed. However, there is zero cell phone reception in this area, and since it's labeled as being open on Saturday, we headed back the way we came. Thankful for the map that had been given to us at the entrance, we noted National Forest Road 52 south of us that would connect to Highway 123. Since our plans got changed, we stopped in the town of Longmire. An adorable little gift shop here. We got ourselves some mementos for the day. I picked out a metal poster with the mountain on it, and Audrey picked out a sterling silver ring with opal. We assume the stone is man-made. The prices seemed extremely reasonable. The poster was $20 and the ring was $30. The low cost of the ring is why we assume the stone isn't natural. That's okay though, as it's extremely pretty and sparkles all nice in the sun. Longmire feels old, and that's because it is. The original trail to Longmire Hot Springs being put in by James Longmire in 1883. The gift shop is housed in a building from 1911 formerly called Hikers Center. We headed back down Paradise Road East, twisting and turning. At first we didn't have the camera really stable on its mount and it was vibrating really bad. Using a knife and some cardboard, I made a washer to take up the missing space and got the camera solid on its mount for the rest of the trip, recording beautifully. NF52 required us to drive back towards Ashford. In doing so, we drove by Wildberries again, and this time, tired and mildly frustrated from the road closure, as well as being hungry, we stopped in and ate. This place isn't a fancy place by any means, but the outside seating somehow made the food more magical. I had chicken strips and fries, and Audrey had pork momo. For a drink, we got the mango lassi, a yogurt mango-based beverage. It was sweet and creamy. My fries were battered, which always reminds me of the coast, and the chicken was cooked to perfection. The pork momo reminds me of pot stickers on the outside with Indian flavors on the inside. Given that it's from the Himalayas, it makes perfect sense of its fusion. Wildberry closes during the winter, which most of this area seems to do. In the lobby of the restaurant is a mountain climbing suit. Since it looked like a fully formed human standing there, it was mildly unnerving to look at. Looking closer, there was a Guinness World Record on the wall for scaling Mount Everest the fastest. Lakpa Gilu Sherpa clearly shows at 10 hours, 56 minutes, and 46 seconds. The owner of Wildberries clambered up Mount Everest. I wondered if it looked to the other climbers that he was just running up that hill, coming in a full hour and a half ahead of the last record holder. Having topped Rainier a staggering 45 times, I start to wonder if it's just an average day hike for the man. After eating, we headed towards Ashford on 706 again, taking a left onto National Forest Road 52. This road closes in the winter and it's easy to understand why. This area gets blankets of snow. This type of road could also be called a dispersed camping road. It offers 38 sites that are separated out, offering access to Big Creek and the forests around. This road was for sure my favorite on this drive. It was a lot like driving on Paradise Road East, but less stressful as we were not constantly climbing. The consistent views of the creek and the tunnels of green and white. The only real stress was how bad the road conditions were. Huge potholes exist on this road, and for most of the drive, I played dodge with potholes. Thankfully, I missed all the big ones. There was a ton of deciduous trees that were either birch or more likely quaking aspen. I'm not a botanist, so I can't say for sure, but what I can Google suggests it could be either. The white trunks of these trees being in stark contrast to the evergreens we had looked at all day. I bet in the fall this road is amazing as the trees start to turn color. Hopefully I can come back through and share with you what that looks like. Fall still feels so far away. NF52 takes you into Packwood. Since this is Washington and lumber towns are numerous, you'd be forgiven for thinking that this was just another one with a name like Packwood. Originally named Sulphur Springs, it was later renamed to Lewis in honor of Meriwether Lewis. You know, that guy from the Lewis and Clark expedition? However, due to the Postal Service getting Lewis, Washington and Fort Lewis, Washington mixed up too often, they finally renamed after William Packwood, who was the partner explorer to James Longmire. This area was originally home to the Cowlitz tribe and had a community in it of a couple hundred strong. While they did log the forests around Packwood, it wasn't its main source of income until World War II, when the U.S. Army harvested millions of feet of hardwood for the war effort. Heading out of Packwood, we traveled down Highway 12, going past Highway 123, which will be our path north. We head up to a lookout point for Mt Rainier and Goat Rocks. I don't think most people know, but the Cascade Range is home to about 3,000 mountain goats. And the biggest predator they have is their daredevil ways, falling from the climb. Sadly, no goats to be seen at Goat Rocks, but the view of Rainier made up for it. The sandy embankment on the other side of Highway 12 really made us uneasy. We took a moment to take some footage of us. We normally don't really like being in front of the camera, but having the big brother support of Rainier in the background, we felt we must. When a big semi drove by, a little bit of the rock came down sliding onto Highway 12, making this stop, which should feel safe, feel like it was risking it all to stay here. We got our pictures and got out. Heading back down, we took our exit to Highway 123. The light had started to fade as we drove north, finally coming to the east side of the mountain. I don't remember much of 123 until we got to the end of it. 123 meets up to Highway 410, which runs along the northern side of Rainier. I can't really say why it was so jarring to come to this junction. Maybe it was the sudden requirement to make a choice after having such a serene drive. We had planned to go up to Tipsoo Lake, which would be a right. However, weary from the trip and with the sunlight fading, taking our ability to see with it, we decided to take a left and headed back down the mountain on 410. This was by far the most boring part of the whole trip. No real view as you drive through tall stands of evergreen trees, just a tunnel of trees and random houses. With no more light to speak of, we turned off the camera somewhere after Greenwater. 410 delivered us back into Enumclaw, which is where we had started our day. We had done it. We had successfully completed our 360-degree trip around Rainier. Please, if you haven't yet, subscribe to our channel. I mean, it's free to do after all. Hit that like button so hard it, has a good time. I hope you have the best of days. Till next time, buddies.